Matthew here from MiniWargaming.com, and it's time for another Sit and Talk. And this is the first one where we're using our new comment system, where you got to thumb up the comments from last week, or thumbs up or whatever, so I could determine which ones I'd actually answer. And thankfully a lot of you actually did that. So thank you very much for that, because it allows me to organize which ones I'm going to answer. Basically the way it worked out was that about the first 5 pages of the 14 pages of comments are ones that were voted up. Now some of them were just voted a little, and a bunch of them were voted a lot more. And I think the one that was voted number 1 is very interesting, which we'll get to in a second. So, if you're new to the show, the Sit and Talk is a show where I just answer people's questions about whatever, wargaming, business, could get into politics or religion. So if you're easily offended by that, please do not watch this show. Go and watch one of the many other shows. For example, as I'm making this video, we just posted up the first set of missions for our new Orc and Blood Angel narrative campaign, which features myself and Dave. So I'm pretty excited about that. So you can go check that out. And of course, if you want to leave questions or comments that you want me to answer, if you are on YouTube, you actually need to leave it on our website. It's just easier to organize that way. So there will be a link in the video description below. And as well as leaving a comment, or it's an and or thing, you don't have to leave a comment. If you could go through the comments and thumbs up the ones that you actually want to be answered, that would be greatly appreciated, because it's happened every week now for the past couple months where there's too many questions for me to answer. So this is the easiest solution that we have, for now at least. So, without further ado, let's go through the questions. The very top one by I Walk with Zoom 000, which had 56 votes. Do you only own 5 shirts? And I think that's a hilarious question, and the answer is no. I think I own 6 shirts. And you're probably asking that because you see the same shirts all the time. See what happens, I only wear work shirts and videos because, well, I want to promote the fact that we have these shirts, and you can go buy them on our Spreadshirt store at miniwargaming.spreadshirt.com. But the problem is there's a couple of the designs that I'm not particularly fond of, and so I don't really wear those. And so just recently, it's funny that you asked this, about a week or 2 ago, I ordered like 10 new shirts. They're the same designs, but it'll be different colors. So at least we'll have some variety in colors. We do need to get some new designs in our t-shirt store though. I do agree with that, just so I can have, just for no other reason than so I can have more variety in the shirts that I wear. Metharian. Hey Matt, when is Jay gonna release his Q&A, or his Q&J? Unfortunately, he is not going to be doing his Q&J. That show has been preemptively canceled, and the reason for that is because I didn't know it at the time when I had started to have him do it, but he was actually planning to give me his notice because he was going to be leaving. And the reason for that is simply because they are moving. And already he's in Guelph, which is like an hour-and-a-half commute to get here, sometimes, or even longer than that, 2 hours I think. And they're moving even further away, so it just becomes impossible for him to work for us. So we're sad to see him go. But he will be going, probably in the next couple of weeks, although you'll probably still see videos for him for a little while because he's got a lot of 40K battle reports from the league that he's done, and we release those only weekly. So it'll be a little while before you don't see him in any videos. But that's what's going on with that. So there's no sense in doing the Q&As or Q&Js because he is leaving. Cody Rue, Matt, I was wondering how long it took you and Steve to complete the Fate of Fayoum campaign. Did you play multiple games per day? Did you play several days in a row? Or did you try to get a few games a week and it took several weeks to complete? I think the 6-week campaign took us about 4 weeks to complete. What we did, we would always try to get 2 games done in a day. I always try. When people come in for battle reports, I always try to get 2 done, because 2 battle reports is 1 day's worth of content, because we put out a free one and we put out a sister one in the vault. Not a Sisters of Battle, but like, you know what I mean. Anyways, and so I feel more productive if in a 1 day of work, I make 1 day's worth of content, rather than working for 2 days to only make 1 day's worth of content. That's just the way my brain works. And so we would try that. For the first 4 mission couples, like mission 1, 2, 3, and 4, A and B of each of those, we were able to do that because the games were small enough, or there was 1 big game and 1 small game. But for missions 5A and B and 6A and 6B, we had to do those 1 day at a time, because the 5A and 5B were both 2,500 point games. And of course the 6A and 6B were both apocalypse-sized games, and so we just couldn't get 2 of those done in a day. And so they took basically 1 day each, or 1 work day. They didn't take the full day necessarily, but they did 1 work day. So that means a total of 8 days, 8 days of filming. And then editing, if you add up all the time to edit all those, it's less than a day's worth of editing. So 9 days of work total So almost 2 weeks of work to have the 6-week campaign done. So it's good. It's a good return. A little more than I'd want to. I normally want to always have 2 done per day, but just because we were doing apocalypse ones in this case and bigger ones, we decided to do it that way. So I think it took us 4 weeks to get all that done. It might have been 5 weeks. 4 or 5 weeks. But not like straight weeks, obviously. Like just that's the period of time that passed. 10 Big Star Wars Fan 10. Hey Matt, what do you think of the new Mini Codex Militarum Tempestus and the new Imperial Guard Codex Astra Militarum? I haven't actually looked at them yet. I think it's interesting that they actually decided to release more than one codex, even if it is a mini codex or whatever you might call that, just because I don't think they need more of them. But it doesn't mean that they're not good. I just don't like the idea of it spreading. Like I think more things should be consolidated. Like I've talked about this before. I think the Blood Angels, Dark Angels, and actually those 2 should be consolidated into the Space Marine Codex, like the Black Templar were, not the Grey Knights or the other one. What's the other one? I'm forgetting. Doesn't matter. Like the Grey Knights are just too different to join the Space Marine Codex. So the Imperial Guard is kind of like that. They should just have more options than the one thing. I'm not sure if they're doing it because they want to sell more books or because they actually feel that it'll be better for hobbyists. I really don't know. I know that they've been doing a lot of digital supplements and all of that, so there is kind of this, it seems to be this push towards more material. Like when you go onto their digital store they can iBooks for digital copies or for whatever. There's a lot of things, like the Tyranid Codex comes out, and then that's available in interactive edition and just ebook version, which the ebook version is cheaper. And the interactive one is around the same price as the Codex. Sometimes they're cheaper. And then they come out with 3 supplements for the Tyranids to introduce new formations. And then they come out with an Altar of War for the Tyranids, or in the case of Space Marines, they have 2 of those so far. And then they compile all the Altar of War into another. I don't think it's a bad strategy. It's just you can see that they're kind of starting to push towards having a lot more source material, whereas before it was just a few codexes and then a few supplements. Whether that's a good strategy or not, I don't know. I'm not in it. I can't see it from their side to really be able to answer that. I can only see it from my side. But I like having as much source material as I can get. I might not always agree with the prices, but I don't think anybody ever agrees with the prices, so that's probably the thing. I know when I did the review on the digital stuff, I was a little negative on it, and I still to some degree am, but at the same time I've kind of come to accept it more and just kind of deal with it and have that kind of stuff. So is it a good idea that they're doing more stuff like this instead of having one big, thick Imperial Guard book? Maybe. I don't know. But I haven't actually looked at them and seen the army itself, so I can't give you any review on that. Crazy Kill Switch. Hi Matt, I live in the UK and have been a Vault member for the last few months and I'm loving every second. Awesome, thank you. My question is this: what are your views on Chinese and other recasting companies like Yoimart who sell recasts of various GW and Forge World products? From what I have seen, the quality is decent and the prices are about 70% cheaper than the official stuff, but I'm unsure about where I stand on it morally. My friends seem to fall into 3 groups. 1, those who think it is wrong at all counts and that all our money should be supporting GW directly to ensure maximum new content and releases for the future. 2, those who have most of their stuff from GW Direct but buy the occasional model from recasters as they wouldn't be able to afford it otherwise, so would not have bought it directly. 3, they are not bothered about GW's profits, as being veteran gamers, GW's policies do not cater to them anyway, so they make the decision to buy all their stuff the cheapest way possible. And also argue that GW's pricing is so extreme they are creating the demand for recasts, so causing the problem themselves. I'm probably somewhere in the middle on this, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know not everybody's going to agree with me with this, but I think it is definitely not ethical to buy them. Simply because, well, I know legally, I think that I don't know all the laws in China, but I know that there's ways to get away with it legally in these other places. But ethically and morally, they're stealing. That's what it comes down to. And any of those arguments, I've heard all these arguments all my life about pirating. I wouldn't have bought it anyways. They're big companies, they're charging too much. It doesn't matter. That doesn't give us the authority to steal from them. And if you're not able to afford it, or you don't want to pay their prices, then you don't own the product, is what it comes down to. You can complain about price. Like if somebody says, I have this car and I'm going to sell it for $1 million, and it's just like a broken down 1990s Pontiac Sunfire, that doesn't give you the authority to go and steal it. Or to go and, I know that doesn't completely hold up because you're saying, well, no, I'm just going to go get a copy of it, and so I won't steal it. But it's just, all you can do is complain about it, which is perfectly fine. You can say, there's no way I'm going to spend that, but you don't end up with the product. Or actually, a better example would be like a manufacturer of Sunfires, and they have they own the patent and the copyright for it, and they're like, this is we've designed this car, and it has this kind of stuff. We're going to sell it for this price, and you're like, well, that's too much. I'm just going to go buy a pirated copy of it, and you don't feel bad for it because it's like, well, I wouldn't have spent that money on it anyway, so they're not losing any money. But it doesn't work like that. I honestly believe that is immoral and not ethical. And I've always been hugely against pirating of software for that same reason. Even though everybody has their reasons and their excuses, I think it is it's totally bogus. All those reasons. It is simply, if you don't agree with the price of somebody's product that they're making, then you don't get their product. That's really what it comes down to. You don't have this right or privilege to have a product simply because and pirate it or get a copy of it from a recaster just because you feel that the company who made it in the first place, like who designed it and created it, don't deserve your money. Like that's just not your choice. If they don't deserve your money, that's fine. Don't give them your money. But don't expect the product then in some other way. If you're looking for a cheaper way to get the product, then go into online stores who sell it at a 20% discount or a 10% discount. Like that's an ethical way because Games Workshop has authorized those people to resell it. And they sell it to those people at a discount, and so those people can then sell it at whatever price they want, and they would eat the cost of selling it lower than the top profit margin if they could. And if Games Workshop eventually shuts down all those retailers and we complain about that, well, it still doesn't matter. We still have to, if you want their product, you got to follow the rules that they would put in place. That is how I feel about it. I realize that there's going to be counter arguments to that, and that's fine, but I feel strongly about that. I've always felt strongly about that when it comes to pirating in any form, whether it's digital stuff, where people are like, well, I don't take anything from the company, or whether it's physical stuff like recasting. So you asked. Big Gaz J. Hi Matt, just a quick question. Do you miss Dan as much as I do? I don't know. How much do you miss Dan? We do miss Dan. We do wish that he was here making videos with us. He is the one reason why any orc player at my local Games Workshop has to scream, "Wow!" as otherwise it doesn't count. Keep up the great work and can't wait till the next campaign. Barry Cusbane. Hi Matt, have you ever considered releasing shows like Sit and Talk, Tactica, etc. as a podcast? I like listening to podcasts. So when you say podcast, because a podcast, when you say listening, a podcast doesn't have to just be an MP3. A podcast can actually be videos. And so I think what you're actually asking is as an audio podcast. Because otherwise, like we could release a video podcast, but that wouldn't help you with listening on your car. Unless I guess you have like an iPod or an iPhone and you just play the video and you just don't watch the video, you just hear it. I like to listening to podcasts in the car on the way to work, but cannot do this with your shows as they are all videos. Since the content of these shows is all audio, they wouldn't lose anything by being audio only, and I could enjoy some mini wargaming goodness on my daily commute. Keep up the good work. A fellow Matt. You know what, you're not the first person to ask for that, and it probably means I should do it. But I'm just wondering what the easiest way to do that. Because people say podcast. I remember looking into it once. And I know that used to mean like having an iTunes thing, and I remember trying to do that once and I just couldn't figure it out. But maybe if we even just had the MP3 available for the Sit and Talk, maybe that would be enough. Would that be enough? Would on the page where you could watch it, if there's a link underneath that says click here to get the MP3, would that be enough? I'm not worried about ad revenue on the Sit and Talks. Like yes, we would lose a bit of ad revenue if you were to download the MP3, but it's so minute that I don't really care. So, would that be enough though? Just to have a link to get the MP3, or does it need to actually be through like an iTunes thing? Let me know. UK Sweeney. Hi Matt, I joined the vault for more Warhammer Fantasy. I don't have any Warhammer Fantasy in there right now. But it's been so long since I've seen any. I joined when the High Elves book came out. I was so excited for a book review, which never came. And just to confirm with everybody else, we never said we were going to do a High Elves thing, but at the same time, it'd be nice to be able to have those things. I love the shows, including the 40K, Big Up, Tau, and Imperial Guard, and I will never leave, but just wish there was more. Warhammer Fantasy, I kind of made a decision not too long ago that we're going to wait a little while to cover Warhammer Fantasy. We were covering it when Owen was here, and he's not here now. But that's not the only reason. I want to just make sure that we're kind of reshifting our focus with the changes that have been happening with the campaigns, with Jay leaving and Owen who had left, and we're just kind of we're trying to become more consistent with what we do, meaning that my goal this year is that whatever we do, we could tell you. You know, you're going to see this. Like for example, and I'm going to tell you this, although we're still working on it. Dave and I just worked out a schedule of content. For example, every Monday you're going to see 40K battle reports. Now you've already seen the 40K League ones every Monday, but now you're going to see like that's when we're going to rotate between beat map bat reps, banter bat reps, and then the rest of the 40K League ones as well. But once those are exhausted, it'll just be beat map bat reps and banter bat reps. Every Tuesday is going to be the War Machine League. The Wednesdays are going to alternate. Every other week there will be an Infinity Battle Report, and then every other week on top of that, there's the other week there's going to be an Ask a Wargamer with an open vault, the behind the scenes for the vault members. So we'll be more consistently creating the behind the scenes stuff. Our plan is to do those every other week. Everything is paired, everything is coupled with something that goes in the vault, because that's our main focus, is getting people into the vault. Every Thursday is going to be the 40K campaigns. Now there might be sometimes like 1 or 2 weeks between campaigns. I'm going to try not to have that happen, but it might, in which case it'll just be some other 40K content. And then every Friday, Dave is actually going to be doing his Reign of Chaos series. And in the Reign of Chaos, that's where he does like Tactica, or he does just kind of the random stuff, not battle reports. Those are going to go out on the Monday as his banter bat reps. So that's like the schedule. So you can kind of expect that, not tomorrow or today if you're watching this on Friday, because it's Good Friday, so it's a holiday. But you can kind of expect to see that and on a regular basis. And so that means we're covering 40K, War Machine, and Infinity on a semi-regular basis. 40K obviously the most, War Machine next, and then Infinity after that. And so, as you can tell, it's going to be a lot of work just to get that content done. And then we're seeing really good growth in the Mini Wargaming Vault right now, which is going to allow us to expand and grow over the coming year or two. And what that'll mean, because even right now our studio, we're competing for the studio, we're just making so many videos. And so it means eventually we need to move out of this place and get a place where we can renovate and have 2 or 3 studios that can be, like one that's like a permanent green screen studio, and then a couple battle report studios. And that's not unrealistic at this point. We're really seeing financially that we're going to be able to do that. Hopefully, my plan is next year that we'll be doing that. And that might sound like a long time away, but we're already in April of this year. And a year to a business is not a long time. Business time, you have to think in the longer term, and then just like every month we got to do something different, because there's no stability in that. So when we decide to cover a new game, I want to be able to say we're going to cover it weekly or bi-weekly, and we want to cover it well. And so that's where we need to kind of come in and make sure we have the resources to do that. And it's not just resources of people. That's not the issue. It's not necessarily hiring somebody, because we could afford to hire somebody. It's also the studio, for example, that already we're competing for when we're going to record in the studio. So that can cause issues. And so you can kind of tell.
Big issue. You got the wrong video up.
What's one? Which one?
We don't have 1A up. It's 1B.
Oh, whoops. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So you probably already know this by the time you're watching this, but I made a mistake. I rendered the second part, like mission 1B, twice. And I put that up as the first and second one, so I just had to delete that and re-rendering it. It's going to take a couple hours, which means everybody has to wait a little longer before they get it, but by the time you watch this, you'll have already seen it, so, or at least it'll already have been up. Okay, so yeah, we were talking about the fantasy stuff, and I answered that question, so let's just move on. Doric 2000, hey Matt, just wondering what you think of homeschooling. I live in northern New York, and we have a pretty large group of people who homeschool here, mostly for moral concerns about what goes on in public schools. My whole family and I were homeschooled, and I think it's great. Just wondering if you have ever thought about it. I haven't thought about it like I would consider it for my kids, because I don't want to. Homeschooling is fine. I have no problem with it. Some people have, I think, wrong reasons to do it or to not do it. But at the same time, there's absolutely nothing wrong with homeschooling. It's true. Also, on a more wargaming related note, me and my brothers are thinking about making a trip up from New York to play you guys sometime this spring/summer. We have written some rules for death worlds in which random things happen across the battlefield every turn. Example, firestorms, earthquakes, zombies rising up. I was wondering if you'd be interested in trying these, perhaps in a big apocalypse game. If you come down, I'm not as interested in doing apocalypse games very often, because they take too much time. and we try to get, like if people come up, we try to get a couple games done per day. In Apocalypse, you're lucky to get one done in a day, unless you do a small one. So it would be, it's not that I wouldn't be interested in the Death World stuff, but it might be cooler on a smaller scale. Oh, and do you plan on doing reviews of every new codex? As this is my favorite thing to watch on the site. It's always great to hear someone else's impressions on the new codices. The simple answer to that is no. Because one thing we've kind of decided to do, as I was talking about content creation, as you can see what we're planning, is a while ago I kind of said, you know what, we're not a news site. We're not a news and reviews site. Like Beasts of War, they're a news and review site. Bell of Lost Souls, they started off as a news and rumors and reviews kind of site. We're not that. We kind of realized that it took us a few years to kind of figure out our own identity, what we like to do and what we're good at. And what we are is I think the thing that defines us is our battle reports and, you know, the goofy videos that Dave likes to do in Life of a Wargamer, and of course painting tutorials in the vault. I'd say that are the things that define us. We will occasionally do reviews, like I did the full review on the Tyranid Codex because I'm into Tyranids, so it makes sense. But that is not our plan to be able to cover all of that. It is not necessary. That doesn't mean that we won't ever do it in the future, because I think having a news and review component to the business would be great. But if you just say, well, yeah, I should do it because people really like that. But it would be at the expense of the battle reports. If we were to do lots more news and reviews right now, it would mean we would do less battle reports. And I could guarantee that most people would get very upset if we decided to pull back the number of battle reports that we were doing. Already, people still already want more of them, so reducing them. So we can't remove the resources from something that's already working and that people are already enjoying to do something else that we might not be able to do perfectly well. Like we had doing news and reviews is actually quite difficult because there's always new stuff coming out. Like think about 40K, just Warhammer 40K in the past year, the number of things they've come out with. And so I don't want to just do bogus reviews where it's like, hey, we just quickly read over the codex. Like when the Tyranid Codex came out, Jay and I quickly did a video at the beginning of our initial impressions with the intent of doing a full review about a month later. So it's just, you really have to pour into the armies. You've got to play them a lot and do all these things before you can really give an honest review. So you need a lot more resources in place to be able to do that, because we are limited on the ones that we play. Like the Imperial Guard stuff that's been coming out, I'm going to get the codexes and look at them, but I'm not going to be able to give an honest review until I've played against them quite a few times. And we just can't. I just can't just make up stuff and be like, yeah, it seems like it's good. This doesn't seem very good, but then somebody else comes out and was like, of course it is. When you combine it with this, it's awesome. So we're just not ready to do news and reviews yet. So I can guarantee that it will not be a regular thing. You might see it occasionally for stuff that interests us particularly, but not specific, not regularly. Star Wars Geek. Not sure if this was already asked, but will Chris's Quick Tips videos series return? Or is the new Miniature Painting 101 series a replacement for it? I enjoyed the Quick Tip videos because the content was varied and differed from day to day. Yeah, they will definitely be returning. Chris is just busy right now making the stuff for Miniature Painting 101, which is our very first painting academy. And so we just post that up as content rather than having no content. And once he's done that, in between working on other painting academies, he'll definitely resume doing his Quick Tips. So yeah. What you can expect always in the vault is pretty much every day a painting or terrain tutorial, at least daily. And when I say daily, I mean Monday to Friday. Nas FX, hey Matt, totally amazed you take the time to do this. By the way, Starbug is a light spacecraft part of the mining ship Red Dwarf. Anyhow, this came from a most popular 90s/2000 sitcom called Red Dwarf. If you ever get a chance to check it out, very British humor, it is totally awesomely fun. Keep up the good work. Noted. Miso, will Mini Wargaming let Dave get a brass scorpion of corn for his chaos? It would be so awesome sauce. Defy's big brother. I'm sure one day he will have one. Nathanael, hey Matt. What are your thoughts on the fact that a lot of Warhammer and nerd community is quite overweight and unhealthy? How do you think one would go about turning that trend around? As a Warhammer and a fitness freak, in equal measure, it's a thing I've been thinking about for some time. I know what you mean. Whether that's, it'd be interesting to actually have a study done to see if there is actually a difference, because I know there's a stigma attached, and I find that in certain cases it's true, but in other cases, like we've had a lot of people come in who are just kind of an average build. Sure, maybe not the most fit people in the world, but you know, I don't see all the big, huge, fat, sweaty, greasy kind of guys coming in all the time. It's interesting. Maybe I won't say that. The wargaming doesn't seem to have it as bad as other hobbies. that focus around fantasy kind of stuff. That's all I'm going to say. And I think the reason is because in wargaming you have to actually stand for a few hours to play games and all that kind of, and there's a lot more socializing with it as well. Why is it that way? I think a nerd is, well, these hobbies still have a stigma attached to them, which means that people who think that they're cool, and those are the people who are super obsessed with the way they look, and so they're more likely to be the ones trying to stay thin and trying to work out and all that. They're going to be worried about associating with nerds, and that's still the case. I know it's gone away a lot from what it's been in the past 20 years, but there's still a stigma attached there of being called nerds. Like even adults, like older adults, like in their 30s, looking at that and being like, "Oh, you're such a nerd for doing that kind of stuff," and I'm just like, "Whatever, I know I am. That's fine." What can you do to change the trend? You can't really do anything except for yourself. That's really all you can do, is yourself, making sure that you stay healthy. Because we do need to be healthy. Tomb King of Orcs. Hey Matt, I was wondering if someone emails you about a bat rep and they want to use some of the models in the store, such as the orcs, would you allow them to use those minis? Definitely. As long as they have experience with the army. I don't want somebody emailing me and say, "Hey, I've never played 40k before. Can I use your orcs and play a game against you?" Like, no. We need people who know how to play the game. Or even if they're like, "I play Imperial Guard, I've never played orcs before, can I use your orcs?" I still no. But if somebody's like, "Hey, I'm coming from New York and I don't want to truck up my orc army, could I use your orcs?" I've got a lot of experience with them. I'd be like, "Yeah, for sure." So yeah, the studio armies are definitely available to be used. AndyMan5, hey Matt, why did you go first on mission 6 when you had 2k more points? If Steve went first, he could have done so much better. Yeah, narrative campaign, designing missions for narrative campaigns is an art, and I'm just learning that art. And so the question really is, like, it's funny because you look at the outcome and then we try to find the reasons for that outcome. Like I won the mission 6A, and was it because I went first? Maybe. Or maybe it's because I had 2,000 extra points, or maybe because it's where I put the objectives, or who knows. Or maybe it was just bad luck on Steve's part and his rolling. Maybe if we had switched it and he went first, he still would have lost. Who knows? You can't know because we've only got the mission played once. And even if we played it the second time, the dice rolls change. And so when it comes to narrative, and you're going to see that it's agonizing to create these missions for the narrative campaigns, because that means that whatever the outcome is, basically, if it's imbalanced and I win, I get more flack. If it's imbalanced and Steve wins, I get less flack. Because they're like, oh, people actually think that I will imbalance a narrative mission just so I can win because I like to win. And there are some people who say that. I know a lot of people understand how it works, but there are people who will say that. And it's just like, seriously, I'm trying my best to make a cool narrative, and I'm designing the missions for what I think would work the best for that narrative. Sometimes they don't work out. That's going to be the case over and over again. Well, as I do more and more of these campaigns, I hope that my skills in creating balanced missions will improve. But you know what? Even if you create a perfectly balanced mission, like I could create a perfectly balanced game, and I roll 10 dice and you roll 10 dice, and whoever rolls higher wins. That's a perfectly balanced game, right? Then I roll 10 sixes and you roll 10 ones, and you're like totally imbalanced. You totally crushed me. That's not balanced. But dice will just throw off your balance. So even if you create a balanced game, which with 40k is kind of laughable to even think that you can do that, the dice will come in, and you can miss the key rolls, or you can make extra rolls that you never would have thought you would make, and things can die quicker than you thought, or take longer to die than you thought, and it's just hard. And so we just kind of have to accept what happens. I do my best to design the missions in not a way that balances them, but in a way that creates a cool narrative, and then we just kind of accept what happens. That's really what it comes down to. We're not going for balance in the narrative campaigns. That's not the intent. The intent is to create a cool story. That doesn't mean that I want to imbalance all the missions. It just means that I'm not as focused on to make sure both sides have an equal chance to win. Sometimes an opponent will have a one-up. They'll have an advantage, and it's very unlikely that you'll win, but it's more how you lose, or maybe you do pull out a victory that adds to the narrative. It's like, oh, we're on the retreat, they're definitely outnumbering us, but can we get enough of our guys off, or can we make sure this guy doesn't die? Those things add to the narrative, not just having game after game where it's equal points cost and you just set up a cross and all the objectives are in the middle and you just kind of fight. That would be boring after a while. So those are my thoughts in there. CJMM14, hi Matt. Just joined the vault and I'm loving it. Awesome. What happened to the Tyranid Worldwide campaign? Nothing. quite literally. Will we be doing one? I still think I'm going to want to do one. I talked about it, people seemed enthusiastic about it, and then I started the Tyranid Necron campaign, and I kind of was able to do the campaign kind of style thing through that. So, will we do a Tyranid Worldwide campaign? We'll see. Also, how do you make a successful YouTube channel? You make fun content. You focus on good content. If the content sucks, no amount of marketing is going to make up for that. So, make good content. Marmaroth, about the Slaaneshi stuff, is it the content or the needlessly gratuitous way is gnarly for being gnarly? Just a bit curious. Not sure I exactly understand. I just don't like the depictions. I just think it's unnecessary. I have a book recommendation. Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files. As a theologian, I feel he does the church and religion justice. There's a guy called Michael Carpenter. He is a holy knight, the book's not about him, who wields a sword named Amaricus. Things happen, it's fun. Though it picks up in sophistication in book 3, just so you know. As a religious dude myself, I liked a fellow rational representative for us Jedi Force people. Although I think we must disagree about some things. The Swedish Church is very open to HBTQ folks. Oh, right. Our bishop is lesbian, she rocks, which I am one, though since I haven't heard you speak on the subject for more than 1 minute, I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. Huge fan of the show. Yeah, I'm going to stay away from that subject because it is too heated. It's even too heated for me. If you want to have a personal discussion on that and find out my views, then you can email me, Matthew@miniwargaming.com. There's certain things that have just created too much hate in talking about them that even I don't want to really talk about those on a video like this. I'll go as far as talking about religion and my beliefs in a lot of things, but when you get to things like homosexuality and all that, it is so highly charged, so ridiculously highly charged. Both sides get so crazy in how they talk about it that it's just better not to discuss it on a video like this. But if you want to talk about it, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have about my beliefs on it. But just email me personally. Miso, Matt, I was wondering how you thought the two armor save systems of Fantasy and 40k compare. I don't think either really works, as Fantasy makes strength very important, while a high enough AP simply ignores the save altogether without modifying it. And really, shouldn't you roll armor saves first? I ask as there are rumors they are moving towards unifying the 40k and Fantasy rules in the summer. Really, it's all just an abstract system. I think that the flaw in the system overall, especially in 40k, is, well, see, Fantasy kind of does it more right, I think. In 40k, you only get one save. So let's say you have a psychic warp shield in front of you, like, let's say like the Zoanthropes psychic shield. It's our psychic field, and which gives them a 3+ invulnerable save. But then let's say you toss that, or no, let's look at a Terminator with a Storm Shield as a good example. A Terminator with a Storm Shield has a 3+ invulnerable and a 2+ armor save. Now, you shoot a weapon at it, like let's say you're shooting a bolt pistol at the guy, and so you know he's going to take his 2+ save and not his 3+ save. And so at that point, that bolt pistol, that shield is having as much effect on that bolt pistol as not having the shield. So it's like you're shooting the bolt pistol at the guy, and this humongous force shield that this guy has, that is so awesome that you hit him with an AP2 weapon and he still has a 3+ save, does nothing against bolt pistols. Seems kind of odd, doesn't it? Where you shoot a bolt pistol as a Terminator with a Storm Shield, it's the same as shooting a bolt pistol. You have as much chance of killing it as you do as a Terminator who doesn't have one. Doesn't make much sense. Then you take that same Terminator and stick him behind an Aegis defense line. And that does nothing. Like, I don't care how much armor you have. If you take that person with armor and you put him behind cover, hard cover that's meant to deflect shots, and you take that same copy of that one and put him outside the cover and you start firing at him, the one that's inside the cover is going to survive longer. And the 40k game doesn't represent that at all. It basically says cover is not important to people who have 2+ saves unless somebody with a high armor penetrating weapon is firing at them. Which ironically would actually do well against cover, because it would penetrate through that cover. Unless you're talking about cover like in the forests, like where it's area terrain, where they're getting a save because they're harder to be seen, or shrouded from being night fighting or whatever. That's different. But they kind of put all that stuff together. Fantasy does it a little better, where if you have cover and you're being shot at, then it reduces your ballistic skill, essentially, which makes sense because it's harder to see, so it's harder to hit. Whether you roll for a cover save or you modify ballistic skill, it's the same thing, really. You're just reducing the odds of the shot hitting in the first place. Or you're saying that it hit, but then you roll your cover save, and if you make that, it actually didn't hit, so you're kind of reversing what happened. So I think in a perfect system, if there is one, which there isn't, that you would account for all the different protections on something. And there can be, like, for example, if somebody fires a bolt pistol, like Fantasy kind of does it, I think Fantasy does it more right. The whole strength reducing armor thing, you know, that seems to make sense because the stronger you are, the more you're going to puncture through that. And then on top of that, you have some weapons that are specifically armor piercing, which gives an even -1 to that. So I think over the two of them, I'd say Fantasy has it right. Because if you have a ward save in Fantasy, which is kind of like an invulnerable save, where it's granted by something that's not physical, like a ward save is usually given by a magical protection. I know that the shields, you got your parry save as well, which is something completely different. But if you have a ward save, then you get your armor save, and if you fail that, you still get to roll your ward save. So I would say out of the two systems, Fantasy does it better for making the armor saves make sense. And yeah, higher strength will puncture through armor. I think that makes sense. And I always found it funny when my Tyrannofexes fire these 2 strength 10 shots and they're AP 4. Whereas like my strength 7 shot from the Exocrine is AP 2. So that one will specifically get through, even as a blast. Even as a blast. So it's an explosion, and it's like going to get to that 2+ armor. Now I know certain weapons can be designed to be armor penetrating more than others. Like you can fire the same gun with different bullets, one that is an armor penetrating bullet and one that is more a slug that's meant to do more damage, but armor will do a better job against. And you can account for that in the game. Fantasy does it to some degree. They have an armor penetrating weapon. So if you hit with a strength 4 armor penetrating weapon, well, strength 4 will be -1 to your armor save, and then the armor penetrating will be a further -1. Let's say that you had a weapon that was more blunt, and it was meant to do more of the trauma. And so you could have like it be the, you even has a special rule blunt, which means the person gets +1 to their armor save, or maybe +2, but it's like an extra strength. So it's like +1 to your strength, but they get +2 to their armor save. And you might think, well, that doesn't make sense. That's giving them more of a benefit. Unless the idea is that, oh, it may be, or unless they don't have an armor save, or I don't know. There's a better system than the way 40K does it. Now I've accepted 40K's way of doing it. It's fine. You adapt. It's all just different abstract systems. But yeah, it doesn't make sense. So I think Fantasy does it better, to answer your question. Whether they're moving towards unifying the 40K and Fantasy rules, I don't know why they would bother. They're 2 completely different games and they play very differently. It's not like they're going to put 40K guys into regiments or take the regiments out of Fantasy. Those are just 2. And the regiments kind of really force you to change how the game plays. So I doubt that they're going to unify them. Nitro David, good day, Matt. As all 3 of the Rise and Leviathan data slates have been released, will you, or possibly you and Jay, do a review of them similar to your Tyranid Codex review? It's possible, but like I talked about before, we don't specifically try to get reviews done. I have got them all, and I have read through them, and I've even used a few of them as well. So I could do a review. I can give you a basic review right now. I think they're cool. I think it's a little pricey to buy them each for $19, and I know people are like, "Well, we just talked about price," but they're interesting. They just seem a little short for the price that they are. If they probably will do this, but if they release them, all 3 of them together in one, that's cheaper than getting all 3. Then that would be good. Are they balanced? Well, no, of course not. That's fine. I never look for balance in 40K. Not anymore. Wargammer Sky. Matthew, please don't forget that when it comes to making a game like Dark Potential, you don't absolutely have to get every bit of science right. Most folks actually know the finite details of astrophysics, string theory, quantum mechanics, better known as the Sheldon Coopers in life, and so forth, are more of a minority in the population, but that does not take away from their achievements or how hard they have worked in life. Although plenty of people know the basics of these science, it doesn't mean you have to get every little detail right to make everyone happy. If you feel that you misinterpreted dark matter, you don't have to become a physicist to make a great game. Is there any real believability that in the year 40,000 humanity would use tank vehicles with designs similar to World War I tanks? The Land Raider itself is very similar to the British Mark III tank. Or that lasers and cannons would still be the go-to technology for warfare? It's more of a matter of, do the majority of the folks buying the game enjoy playing it? In this sense, I feel that you have made great progress. You could also just retcon the Xlanthos dark matter name with something like Zelfilthier tech and avoid getting into drawing out science bender altogether. Hope this helps. And to all the physicists out there, rock on. I totally agree with you. It's this constant struggle between the two things because as the creator of the game, I get all the comments from the astrophysicists and the people who know what they're talking about, pointing out those flaws. And it does bother me when I see the blatant holes in the science that I create, because one of the things, because I love astrophysics, I love that stuff. I'm not like super knowledgeable on it, but I do really enjoy it. So I want the science in this one to make sense. Does 40K science make any sense? Not whatsoever, but 40K doesn't try to make science make sense. And same, it's like Star Wars. They don't at any point try to claim that it's really a science fiction movie. It's more a fantasy and space kind of movie. They never, when you look at, when they talk about the stuff, they don't go into details of how the technology works. Maybe in some of like the fan fiction, or some obscure places on some wiki, it'll talk about that. But when you watch the movies or the TV shows, or even play the computer games, they don't ever try to really explain the technological stuff. It just is. It's just there. But then you go and you read some other good science fiction books, like the Asimov stuff, like the Robots book series and the Foundation series, and that is more, I wouldn't call it hard sci-fi, but it is, in that he actually goes into the technology and talks about how it works. Or even like Pathfinder by Orson Scott Card, where he actually does time travel and tries to make it kind of make sense. Although it's impossible to make time travel make complete sense, and all these different things. So there's different goals. Some games will be a science fiction game without really caring about how much they get the science right. Comic books are a superbly good example of this. Like, you just watch the Avengers, and you're like, there's every little bit of science they try to talk about here makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And you know why? It's because it was created decades ago by people who knew nothing about science at the time and just heard the term dark matter. Ooh, that sounds cool. So I'm going to make a Tesseract Vault thing that uses dark matter to blibbly blobbly blue and blah 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 blue and blibbly bobbly boo, and now we got some cool special effects and a really fun movie. So they don't try at all, not in the least, and they'll admit it. They'll be the first to admit it. But nope, I don't try. It's funny how which one is which. The one that created, is it Stan Lee who created? I get the Marvel and DC stuff mixed up, but I remember watching an interview where he's like, at least I tried to make Thor make sense in how he flies. He throws his hammer and it pulls him, whereas Superman just flies. And he was kind of mocking it like the Superman doesn't make sense, but Thor does, and it's just laughable. It's like, he twirls a hammer and then it pulls him. Do you know anything about physics? Like, you can't twirl something and not let go of it and think that its momentum is going to carry you. Like, it doesn't. That's like sitting in a boat and blowing on the sail and thinking it's going to move the boat. It doesn't work that way because you're pushing the boat back. It's just, yeah, but it's funny that he even came out and said that. But with Dark Potential, the thing that I always wanted to be kind of a more realistic feeling game. And that involved coming up with some science that actually could make sense in the near future. It's a challenge, though, and now that I've learned a lot more, yeah, I'm definitely going to go back and retcon a few things. But I do agree with you; it doesn't have to be perfect. I'll just have to deal with those who come in and say this doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and it's like, okay, you and your 10 other people in the world who know that much about astrophysics cannot enjoy it, and then the mass population who don't know a lot about astrophysics can, because the idea is to, like you said, make a cool story, make a cool game, make a cool setting, and people will enjoy it. Scoutmaster 3000. Jay needs to rethink the way he films his bat reps. While his commentary is fine, his camera work focuses on the dice rolls. We don't get a chance to see how the players interact with the game and each other. I'm just going to skip that because we already talked about Jay. Don Rayner, do you do speculation about up-and-coming stuff? I'd like to ask your opinion about the rumors for the 7.6 5th edition. Those I heard are 7th edition rule changes, preferred free because I can't afford Vault at the moment. We'd already talked about news and reviews, so I probably won't be talking about that stuff. I don't really try to keep up on it myself either. I'm too busy just trying to make battle reports and stuff. I'm not into this hobby outside of work because I have little kids and church responsibilities. I just don't have time for it outside of work. The only way I'm in this hobby is because of work. If I didn't do it for a living, I probably wouldn't barely do the hobby. Not because I wouldn't enjoy it, but I simply wouldn't have the time for it. And so trying to keep up on everything would just be impossible. So I don't.
It's not a hobby.
Yeah, then it's not a hobby, right? yeah, if you're forcing yourself to do it, then it's not a hobby. So really, I don't try to keep up on the rumors. I'll occasionally look when I'm bored and need something to do. I'll just look it up, and especially if I know that something that I care about is maybe coming up, I look at the rumors. But in the end, stuff comes out. Some of it I look at, some of it I don't. This is too much. There is far too much to try to cover, and we're just a few people. Really, we're just a few people. I hope in 20 years from now, we're not just a few people. I hope we're a huge production company covering all sorts of games, doing all sorts of videos, from short films to skits to sketches to lots of battle reports, to lots of painting and terrain tutorials, and covering all sorts of games, 40K Fantasy, Infinity, War Machine, and who knows how many. Like, I want to cover tons of stuff. I want to eventually become that big with our vault. I want our vault to be like Netflix, where you get it and you're just like, this is too much in here, I can't possibly watch it all. But it's worth it because, you know, I pay the X number of dollars per month or per year, and just these few shows is worth it for me. So the same reason when you buy Netflix, it's not like if you don't watch every show, you're not like, it's not worth it because I didn't watch those 900 shows out of the 1,000 that are on there. I only watched 100 of them. So same idea. That's the idea that I have for the future. But right now we have to kind of buckle down and do what we do well right now, and grow from there. Not try to spread ourselves too thin too quickly and not be good at anything. So that's the way I look at it. Hendronimus. Hi, Matt. What time is it? 10:30. Okay. I have a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. I don't mind. Before I start, love your work, love the videos. You guys are the reason I started Warhammer 40K again after a long break. Awesome. So here we go. 1. Have you ever thought about making challenges / bringing them back? Example, painting challenges, scenery. Do you mean contests? We used to do contests, and we've thought about them time to time. It's just, once again, or with our current production schedule, it's hard to really fit that kind of stuff in. 2, I'm in search of a creative color scheme for my Necron army. Any ideas that you think would be nice? You're asking a non-artistic person an artistic question. I'm going to tell you right now, not my specialty. What I would do is I would just Google Necron color schemes and look at the Google images and just see what comes up. Necrons kind of, they're a little harder to get really fun color schemes. If you want like cool color schemes, Eldar are the way to go, because you can you can multicolor them, and that's what Eldar look like. But no, there are ways to do it though. There are some really cool Necron color schemes out there. So I would Google it. 3, what's the best way of getting into a wargaming community? I'm speaking now of a store with a group of people that always play together. I don't know. I don't have that issue because we do all our battle reports here. So I don't have the typical gamer experience. My experience with gaming is so atypical that it's hard to answer questions like that. Like, how do you get your friends into it? Like, I will experience that for a short while, and then we started the business and don't have to worry about that anymore, because now we get people coming to us, which is great. It's a wonderful thing. I don't go to a store to play. I play in a studio. Like, how many people play Warhammer in a studio? Like, it's just not normal. And so what I guess just thinking about common sense, not that you don't have common sense, but just thinking what I would give as advice would be like, just go and play and have fun and get to know the people, and that's about it. 4, will there be more video gaming in the future? It's really a large market and could be beneficial. It's a different market. It's just that's not something that's not what we are. We're mini wargaming. We're not videogaming.com. We're miniwargaming.com. Yes, video gaming is a bigger market, but so is car sales. Like, selling cars is a bigger market than miniature wargaming. I can guarantee that. That doesn't mean that we're going to get into that. As a business, you have to, in order to succeed, you have to do what you do, and you have to be you try to be the best in the market at it. And if you spread yourself out to all these other markets, like if we try to cover video games, like I know I play like Space Hulk and stuff, but that's, it's very related because it's a miniature wargaming representation, or Dawn of War because it's Warhammer 40K. But even that's kind of pushing it. And those videos actually aren't that popular on our channel. When I play those, people just like we get a core set of followers who watch them, but they're not nearly as popular as our battle reports. And so, should we do Minecraft videos and should we do Call of Duty videos? The answer is no, definitely not, because it would spread us out too thin, and maybe we wouldn't even be good at them. I don't mean the games, but I mean at making the videos. There are so many different YouTube channels out there that already do that, and so we would be stepping into competition with people who have millions of subscribers. Millions! Or like PewDiePie, who has like 25 million subscribers, that kind of thing. So no, Just because a market is big does not mean it's a good idea to go into. In fact, sometimes the market being big is a reason why you don't go into it as a small business, because you don't have the resources to compete. Miso Miso. Hey, Matt. Hey, Miso Miso. What do you think about the next Fantasy Edition being released in the summer? I think that's cool. Have you heard any rumors? I heard that it's coming up this summer. What do you think of the rumor the Fantasy Timeline is being moved forward? I haven't heard that rumor, but if it's true, that's awesome. There has not been a lot of fantasy lately, so could you use your team? Okay, I already talked about that. Actually, after the painting partnership video you put up, how much of your business cost is painting and acquiring new models? I know it must be expensive, but it's really good for the viewers to see you using new models, as it keeps army selection engaging and interesting and keeps you interested. It's expensive. That's why we have the painting partner program in place, which allows us to exchange advertising rather than paying for the painting. And that really helps us keep our costs down and put that money towards things like new models or new terrain and scenery. But we spend a lot of money every month on new models and new terrain. Well, now we're actually putting a lot of money into new terrain and everything now that we can afford it. Oh, I'm almost out of time. I don't actually don't know how long this is in total because this is the second clip, but we'll see. I think I'll give another 5-10 minutes. Jakey Bakey Lemon Cakey. What's been your favorite edition of the 40K rules? I started with 4th edition. I don't remember anything about it. We went to 5th edition. I remember liking it. Especially because it made my Tyranids broken. Because they changed how preferred enemy worked. And at the time, Gene Stealers could get it for 1 point. Before, I just made it so you always hit on a 3+ no matter the weapon skill. Which they always would anyways because their weapon skill 6. And then 5th edition comes out and says no, it allows you to re-roll to hits. It's all of a sudden, it's like, seriously? And you give it to everybody else within 3 inches. So it's like, you bring a Carnifex along. Oh, it was awesome. For 1 point. Yeah, it was a 1 point before because, yeah, they usually were hitting on 3s, so preferred enemy just let them hit on 3s. It gave it to the nearby guys as well. That's where it was good. But still, re-rolling was awesome. I don't know. I like 6th edition. I think it's fine. I'm not one of those people who it's like, when a new edition of something comes out, or a new like YouTube updates how their homepage works, or Facebook updates how their feed works. I'm not one of those people who are like, it was perfect the way it was. Why did you change it? I can't believe you changed it. Let's all have a petition so they change it back. Like I don't care. It's like whatever. Everybody's like 2nd edition was best, and 3rd edition was best, and all that. It's like no, you know what? Just who cares? I just play the recent edition, and that's what I do. YouTube comes out with a new feed. It's kind of annoying to have to learn it, but after a while I'm like, yep, I like this one better. Facebook comes out with a new way to do it, and it's kind of annoying to learn how to do it, but after a while you're like, okay, yeah, this is better. Or maybe it's not, but who cares? It's the way they're doing it, so it's kind of what I deal with. So, yeah. I started with 3rd edition with the BBB, Big Black Book, came out, and wanted to collect Marines. My dad thankfully steered me towards Orcs. It was pretty tough being the only Orc player around where I played, but the Chopper rule made Terminator armor play like Play-Doh. I don't know what the Chopper rule is. Do you think a War Boss with a Rocket Pack would be a fun option for them to put in a new codex? I personally hope so. That would be pretty fun. Also, thumbs up for the campaign. I think you should add more factions into it, kind of like a Dawn of War vibe. Sorry, my nose is really itchy. Right here. Itchy, 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 itchy. Yeah, scratching, not picking, scratching. It's right here. Can't get rid of it. See, right there. Right there. Told you get to know me. Kevin 247. Hey Matt, I was wondering if in one of your bat reps you had a flying hive tyrant with 2 twin link devours. I was wondering how this was possible, or if I have missed something. As in the codex, you have to replace a set of scything talons to have them. And you can only have 2 sets to start with, one already being swapped for the wings. Keep up the good work. Look forward to the next campaign. I don't think you swap scything talons for wings. I'm 99.999% sure of that. And the only reason that I'm not 100% sure is because you just made me doubt it by saying that. So I've got my Tyranid Codex here on my iPad, and I'm going to quickly look, but I'm pretty sure you are wrong. I know the model makes it look like you do, because the model, like, you'd only have room for like 1 set, which is really weird. And it makes sense for their anatomy, because they're only that many limbs. Okay. GG. Hive Tyrant. Yeah. May take any of the following. Wings. That's it. It doesn't say may replace the scything talons. When you look at the options, may take items from the monster's biocannons, melee bioweapons, biomorphs, thorax biomorphs, and Tyranid bioartifacts. When you look at those, A model. Then you can look at like Monsters Biocannons. A model may replace any pair of Scything Talons with one of the following. Melee bioweapons, it says replace Scything Talons. Biomorphs, it doesn't say that obviously. Thorax biomorphs obviously doesn't say that. And then it just says, and then on top of that, so that's the one thing. And then may take any of the following: prehensile pincer tail biomorph and wings. It doesn't say replacing Scything Talons. So that is your answer. Wings do not replace Scything Talons, except on the model itself. So it's actually, I think it's impossible to actually model it with 2 sets of Devourers. But it is totally legit in the rules to do it. So there's your answer. Relentless01, hey Matt, longtime fan and very recent Vault member. I joined mainly to show my support for increased Worm Hordes content. I was wondering if you had ever considered looking into Convergence of Cyrus faction, given your preference for Jack-heavy armies. There's a lot of other factions I've realized that are more Jack-heavy, so it's just a matter. If I really get back into War Machine and Hordes, then I would probably look at a new faction. DKOC, wow, gals / guys, why all the thumbs down on everything all of a sudden? Matt said he was going to look for the highest thumbs up. That doesn't mean everything else needs to be beaten down. I used to take the thumbs down as someone having a rule wrong or bad advice, but it just looks like spammed hate now. Keep up the great work, Mini Wargaming crew. Is that what happened? Did a bunch of people put negatives? Yeah, don't thumb down comments that you don't want to see. Just thumb up comments that you do want to see. Because I'll get through pretty much all the comments that have been thumbed up. Photo Guy. Yep, my group of gamers are starting narrative campaign as well. It just seems like a more fun way to play. It's hard though. Just be prepared. That is hard. Hopefully we'll get it up on Mini Wargaming to share this awesomeness. Thanks for the inspiration. The Dark Angel Lord. Hi Matt, was just wondering from your previous episode of Sit and Talk if you knew how to program. If so, have you ever programmed anything big, or did you do it as a hobby? I do. I have a computer science degree. I'm the webmaster for our site, so I do mainly I do PHP programming, which I know is very simple compared to other stuff. I learned things like Java and other stuff in university, but no, I don't really program like that. My older brother is a big programmer. He actually, for a career, right now he's working for a company that does apps. He's done that for a while, so he's more of a programmer than I am. Although I was a programmer longer than he was, because I got into it in high school and he didn't get into it until university. I was actually very surprised when he decided to go into computer science, but he's taken it much further than I have. So he's gotten better, much better than I am at it, which is kind of fun. But have I programmed anything big? No. Except like in high school and university, I made some fun little games and stuff, but nothing too complicated. Binary Tales. I really enjoy listening to you talk about the science behind the fiction and dark potential. Thank you. Mini Wargaming has got me back into 40k modeling after a decade-long hiatus, but I've always tried to keep up to date with the fluff. I think 40k has one, if not the richest universe of fiction. I think the reason for that, there's 2 reasons for that, I think. One is that it's a galaxy-wide story, which means you can really do anything you want in it. And that is a huge advantage. Battletech, I found, was a very similar thing. Because it covered so large an area, it wasn't galaxy-wide, but it was just hundreds and hundreds of worlds. Each world could have so many stories told about it. And I really like that about 40k. I like how I can create a narrative campaign and make up almost whatever I want, and it can be totally independent of everything else that's been happening. So they set a really good backdrop. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't advance the story. Of course they could advance the overall story arc, and kind of like how they went from Horus Heresy to now. Although I know that 40k, you know, that's a history thing, but still, they should still advance the story arc. So I think the first reason is because it's such a large scale thing, it allows for stories to be told in any form. Like basically anything you can think could happen in 40k. Like any story idea that you have could happen there. You can break every rule that every army possesses. Like you can find an excuse to break that rule and have them do something else. And I think that's a really big asset that Warhammer 40k has. The second reason I think that it's so big is that it's been around for 30 years. And when you're around for that long, because really what it comes down to, in order to get a rich universe, you need time to develop all the lore. You need time to expose people to that lore as well through the mediums of books, and codex updates, rulebook updates, movies, computer games. Everything they do enhances the lore. Like you play the Dawn of War game, it enhances the lore on the Space Marines, on the Orcs, on the Eldar, on the Tyranids. It gives them a chance to tell a story. It gives you more variety. It gives you more details. And so any universe that's been around for a while, and see, Dark Potential I hope eventually will have that same kind of thing, it'll just take some time, because at first it'll feel very, very like specific, because I'll be telling the stories of a few factions in this larger world. But really, you could tell a story almost anywhere in the world. Like right now, Dark Potential is all about greenery. Well, what about the deserts? What about the ice areas? What about the ocean? What about like all these different things? They wouldn't be like that necessarily, but it's just not what's iconic for Dark Potential right now. And so right now I'm focusing on that, or when I was doing it, I was focusing on that. So, as a fan of a number of sci-fi franchises, 40K, Halo, Ian M. Banks' culture novels being the main ones, I would say, for me at least, the most important thing is not being close to the fact of physics, but being internally consistent. Oh, I see. So don't be like you have to be perfect with the physics, but you have to be consistent. Establish a set of fundamental rules and constants and build the world around it. The Mass Effect from the games of the same name is an excellent example. Something to bear in mind when you revisit the Dark Potential fluff. On a related note, if you might be interested in some reading material on physics, I can recommend The Quantum Universe, Everything That Can Happen Does Happen by Brian Cox. It's more advanced than most layman's texts, but still doesn't require a degree in physics to understand. I'm reading The Fabric of the Cosmos by... oh, what's his name? I don't remember the name. But that one's really interesting right now too. So I just like to read it, just to kind of enhance my understanding of it. The more I read, the more I can retain it, of course. Trace, MCC, have you seen the TV show Merlin? I've heard of it, but I haven't really watched it. It's a BBC production. It's super clean and good. You should try it sometime if you haven't seen it. My time is up. So, got through about 6 pages of comments. I got through everyone that got thumbed up at least a couple times, so that's good. So remember, please leave a comment below. If you're watching this on YouTube, there will be a link in the video description to go and leave the comment there. And then go through and thumb up the comments that you want to be seen. Don't thumb down the ones that you don't want to be seen. Like, there's no point in doing that. Just thumb up the ones that you want to be seen, and of course the ones that get thumbed up a lot will definitely be read and answered. So, and the sooner you get your comments in there, the sooner chance they have, of course, of being thumbed up. So, yeah, it's a solution. I still didn't get through half the comments that were left, so I do apologize that I can't do more, but it's the most I can do on a weekly basis. So I hope that I can still entertain you and educate you and whatever else this show is really actually doing. This is Matthew from Mini Wargaming. Thanks for watching, and happy wargaming.